Welcome back to Module 11. Let's talk about how a software-defined network actually communicates. In this lesson, we're zooming in on the controller and the two directions it speaks, northbound toward your applications and southbound down to the network devices. Think of the controller as the translator in the middle and the APIs as the languages it uses to talk both ways. Before we go further, let's nail down what an API actually is. Instead of you SSHing into a switch and typing commands, an API lets one piece of software send a structured request to another, code talking to code. That means it's predictable, it's automatable. You can run it 1,000 times and get the same behavior, and critically, it's the glue that binds your apps, your controller, and your devices together. At its core, an API is just a contract. Send this request, get that response. Now, those API contracts run in two directions, and the easiest way to keep them straight is geography. Picture the controller in the middle. Everything above it is northbound. That's where your applications live, telling the controller what they want, usually over REST. Everything below is southbound. That's where the controller reaches down to program the actual devices, using protocols like NETCONF or OpenFlow. Apps up north, devices down south. Hold on to that mental map, because the rest of the module builds right on top of it. Here's that mental map drawn out. Applications sit on top, the controller in the middle, and the switches and routers at the bottom. The northbound API, typically REST, is the conversation between apps and controller, while the southbound API carries the controller's instructions down to the gear. Same controller, two faces, one turned up toward software, one turned down toward hardware. Now let's put names on those two faces. Northbound, you'll almost always be talking REST, HTTP requests, JSON payloads, the same style of API web developers use every day. Southbound, you've got a few options. NetConf, which sends XML configuration over SSH, RESTCONF, which is basically NetConf dressed up in REST clothing, and OpenFlow, the classic protocol for programming. SDN switches directly. For the exam and for real life, REST is the headline. That's the one you'll touch most. And that's your map of the SDN control plane. Controller in the middle, apps to the north, devices to the south, and APIs as the contracts between them. Next lesson, we zoom in on the star of the show, REST APIs and the 4 CRUD operations you'll use to actually talk to a controller. If this helped things click, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you catch Lesson 3 the moment it drops.